Today's webinar is entitled Planning for College, a Primer for Parents. Our presenter today is Dr. Dan Shelley, Assistant Vice President and Director of Undergraduate Admissions at RIT. Dr. Dan Shelley has been the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at RIT since 1990, assuming additional responsibilities as Assistant VP for the Division of Enrollment Management and Career Services in 2005. With more than 35 years of experience in higher ed, his expertise spans higher education marketing and related behavioral science research, computer information systems design and integration, enterprise-level web and internet-based developments, strategic knowledge management technologies, and large-scale multivariate probability modeling. Dan holds a BA in anthropology and MS in higher education and computer science from Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. He also holds a Ph.D. in higher education leadership and policy from the State University of New York at Buffalo. Today, our presenter will provide insight into the key ingredients necessary in college planning. Planning for college might seem like a daunting task to many of you. Today's presentation is likely to answer many of your questions and more. There's a lot to cover in a short amount of time, so let's get started. Dan?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to have an opportunity to talk with RIT alums. And I have a fairly full agenda here, so I'm going to get started right away. I'm going to talk about college planning, majors and careers, and admission strategies. I'll intermingle these a little bit as we go, and we'll certainly plan for time at the end to take questions and provide some answers. So without further ado, here we go. I want to start on a high note, and I like this. It's from Dr. James Duderstadt, who's the past president of the University of Michigan. He now has retired since and sits on the Department of Education, Federal Department of Education's Future of Higher Education Committee. And he wrote something recently that I particularly like, and I think it speaks highly of not just RIT, but what's happening on the higher education landscape. I think it's important for parents. I think it's not unimportant for students to know, but especially for parents that have sons and daughters that are reaching college age, to think about those things that are actually more important as you look at institution to institution and try to measure them up. But he says, to be sure, we must bear in mind the deeper purposes of the university that remain unchanged. It's where human potential is transformed, where wisdom of our culture is passed from one generation to the next, and new knowledge that creates our future is produced. Most importantly, though, I think it's the last paragraph that I would call your attention to, that as you're looking at universities and colleges with your sons and daughters in the future, to think about the institution itself and how does it address the rising needs socially, environmentally, ecologically, and so forth. He says, change will not only be the challenge to the American university, it will be the watchword for years ahead. With change will come unprecedented opportunities for those universities with the vision, the wisdom, and the courage to lead in the century ahead. And in essence, what he's saying is higher education nationally and globally is really not well known for its ability to change quickly, to be malleable, to address this dynamic emerging need of workforce demand. But some institutions, and your alma mater certainly is one of those from our point of view, the academic portfolio continues to change to address that very emergent need in workforce. And I think that there are other institutions that like that. And I think I call your attention to that because I think as you're looking at institutions with your sons and daughters, pay attention to that as you look at their academic portfolio and as you look at what their graduates do and as you look at the conversations they have inside the institution about how they address emerging national and global needs. That transfers into a more meaningful baccalaureate program for your sons and daughters. So let's move on. Go to a different level here. What do you do? When do you begin? And I'll tell you from our point of view, and since I've been in this business for 35 years, I can tell you that the locus of planning, timing-wise, has changed significantly. People used to wait somewhere into the senior year and begin. That's no longer true. Today, the locus of really the bulk of people starting this process is in the spring of the junior year. So it's at the end of the junior year. But I can tell you also there are many people at the spring time who are sophomores. I have sons and daughters who are sophomores that are also doing this. So it continues to move to an earlier time because parents and students are recognizing the significant challenge in gathering information and doing the visits and so forth so that they have sufficient amounts of information to make gainful and meaningful decisions later. So I would call your attention immediately to web. The web has incredible resources. I have a slide a little later here that will lead you to a few of those. There are a number of guides you can purchase, and some of those are very well done. Peterson's guide, the private colleges guides, and so forth. And then ultimately visits to the campus. So let's move on. So before your first college visit, I call your attention to all those information resources and really spend the time reading through those. And I think the best way to do that is with your sons and daughters. Do this as a collaborative. This is a great opportunity for parents to work with their sons and daughters in a collaborative way on something that's really important. I can also tell you that in all of our experiences here over the years, it's a place where parents in the beginning, the ones that are most successful, I'll say it that way, take a somewhat backseat to the process and let the son or daughter lead the way. What are you interested in? What are you thinking about? What about academic programs? Where would you like to go? What kind of college are you looking for? What about sports? What clubs, activities? To really try to get a sense of what they are interested in. And they will have some of that as they move further down the pipeline in high school. So build the list. What is the list? Check, read the web, read the guides, and you're looking at colleges that might be on the list, and I would encourage you to build a big list. You can build a list of 10, 15, even 20 in the beginning, and then the job is to pare those down before you start your visits. So once you have it down to maybe fewer than 10, I would encourage you, but it might be as few as 5 or 6. The things you want to make sure you bring to the visit, number one, and I find it surprising that so few people do, bring a list of questions that you and your student have developed prior to the visit. It's vitally important to collect as much meaningful information that's relevant to you and your son or daughter during that visit. So having the questions listed really makes a big difference. I always equate it to buying a car. When people buy a car, they really do their homework, they have their questions ready, they really go to it as they're looking at dealership to dealership. This is far more important than that, and so really I think calls your attention to developing a full list. Moving on. And this is something that you won't find in the guides, but I have recommended it for many years. I think it's one of the most important things. Recognize that your son or daughter is under a lot of stress in this process, just like you'll be as well somewhat. What your job, in my view, should be is to help them think through the process and to help them apply to institutions that are somewhere in the realm of possibilities. And not to apply to those schools that are outside the realm of possibility where they receive rejections. There's an easy way to do that, and that is to approach your high school counselor and get an unofficial copy of your son or daughter's high school transcript and bring that with you to the college visit. Schedule a meeting with an admissions counselor. I would also advise that you schedule a meeting with a faculty member or 2 faculty members from 2 different departments if your son or daughter has more than one area of interest. But in the meeting with the admissions counselor, I would encourage you to take the unofficial transcript, if it looks like a place that she or he has interest in, and say, here's an unofficial copy of the transcript. Can you tell me if my son or daughter is in the right place? Is this somebody that looks like might qualify for the academic program they're interested in? That can take a lot of stress off the situation. If the counselor says, yep, you're in the ballpark, you have some self-assurance that applying to that institution might be a real potential at the other end of the admission decision. And if it's not on the list, there's no reason to drag your son or daughter through that process with high hopes only to end up with a no at the end. So keep that one in mind. Last of all, I'd recommend, believe it or not, bringing a camera. After you visit 3, you'll be surprised at how difficult it is to remember each place. So if you've documented your visit with the camera, you will find it far easier to recall your experiences at each college. Last of all, at the end of each visit, write down all the things you learned. What did you like? What did you dislike? What are some of the issues you think need to be addressed for this institution? And keep those in a safe place. A lot of people use Google Docs these years because it's easy to set up an account and share it with the whole family so everybody has input and reads through it at the same time. If you're sitting in an interview or you're sitting in a group presentation, the whole family can be logged into the same document and continuing to take notes and identify questions that you may want to ask. So it's a really meaningful way to do it. But paper works as well. Keep organized on the folders that by college. Let's move on to another slide. I think, and you'll see here in orange, I've put our IT in because some of your sons and daughters may have interest in our IT, but it also gives you some sense of what I'm saying. I think one of the first things you want to do at each institution you visit is really try to get a sense of the primary institutional focus. What is it they do, number one, before any other thing? And our IT is an undergraduate teaching institution. That is the first thing that is most important to us. Our faculty, as you know, are promoted first and foremost because of that, and secondary for everything else. So what is the institution? Is it research? Is it graduate? Is it undergraduate? What is their focus? That gives you some sense about the attention your son or daughter will receive as a bachelor level student at the institution. I think in terms of strategic thinking about the degree, and this kind of goes back to the comment from James Duderstadt in terms of future thinking institutions. I think there's something to that about this in terms of how the bachelor's degree is laid out. Certainly up-to-date technology and information and global thinking and the core discipline, but we know, and you probably know, if you not because you're alums of RIT, that liberal arts also goes a long way to helping students with positions later, not jobs, but careers. And the companies that hire today, and I don't know, it depends on when you graduated from RIT, but I can tell you today corporations are saying we can no longer take your graduate and put them into a lab studio or an office and say create. We need a lot more from that graduate. So first of all, we put them into a lab studio or an office, but they're working on a team or with a team because collective thinking is our smartest way to make decisions in the organization. So if your graduate has had a lot of experience working in groups, if they've had experience in developing their communication skills, then they're going to do well in our organization. We also hear that we're a multinational corporation, and sometimes a second language is helpful, but also some understanding of economics, world politics, and so forth. So a breadth is important. It's not just about the core discipline anymore. Technology and computing, if no matter what the field is, there's technology and computing in every field today. The college you're looking at, how have they kept things current? Have they? I think that's important. And how easy are they to access? And then how have they blended experiential learning with the degree program? 35 years ago, there were very few cooperative education institutions in the country, and even today, there's still only 4 large ones. The oldest and largest is the University of Cincinnati, but the other 3, and they cluster about the same size, Drexel University, Northeastern, and of course RIT. There is no close 5th. My son is a second-year college student right now. My daughter is a senior in high school and will be attending college next year. I've told both of them that one of the things that I really want them to do in wherever they go is a cooperative education. Something has changed significantly over the past 35 years as it relates to co-op. Many institutions now offer cooperative education, and from my point of view, I think that's a real significant step forward for higher education in the U.S. I think it really begins to start addressing this emergent workforce need that higher education has been so incapable of dealing with in past years. It creates a unique conversation between employers, whether it's government or corporate, international, that really wasn't there before. So I applaud that, and I think that's important to know. I would say, though, if you feel, as I do, about the importance of co-op, those programs are typically very small. And so you want to make sure that you've visited and you've had a chance to look at the cooperative education opportunities that relate to your son or daughter's areas of academic interest to make sure that there's fulfillment there should they decide to go, and should co-op be high on your list. I think it's also fair to, when you're meeting with faculty on campuses, to talk with them about how they teach from a more global perspective. What is the level of awareness, and how do they blend that or weave that through the curricular offerings on the campus? Moving on, classroom setting. I think that there's something to be said about the student-faculty ratios, and it's more than a number or a ratio. I think it's really, hopefully talks to the opportunity for a student to have offline conversations with the faculty member, for the faculty member to have a gainful chance to meet and have informal conversations with the student or students. There is a significant importance from our point of view in that, and we hear from RET students, as a matter of fact, all the time, that are in their third or fourth year, or fifth year if they're engineering and some of the other 5-year programs, that my freshman faculty or my sophomore faculty still are engaged in conversation with me. They've helped me formulate my pathway through RET and through my career selection. They've made me a better person. They've helped me with my thinking and refined it. I'm forever grateful. I think that that level of relationship is something you want to pursue wherever your sons or daughters decide is a good place. Class sizes, thus, are important as well. So you want to find something that is not overwhelming, where you're in a class with 300 students. How does that scope down to a smaller class size so students do have a chance to talk with the faculty members? And our faculty teaching the lectures, you'll find at a lot of institutions, and this is in particular true at some of the larger publics, graduate assistants teach the lectures or some of the breakout sessions. So I think it's just important to have a sense of where are faculty, how many of them are there compared to the students, are they teaching faculty versus research faculty, and get a sense of that potential for relationship building. And faculty knowledge breadth and so forth. So I think all the above as you're traveling and meeting with faculty. But I think it's important to ask, and some institutions will say we don't allow visitors to meet with faculty. We pretty much insist that people meet with faculty at RET. I think there are other institutions as well that will recommend that, but I would recommend for you as parents to ask that question absolutely up front. Moving on. Pay attention to the college profiles. I think it really helps you gain some sense of what the place is like on mix. And I think when you go for the visit, go during a class day. So if you can, so in other words, not a Saturday or a Sunday. Go during the week. Fridays are great days and Mondays are great days. Get a sense of what it's like in between classes in the middle of the day. It helps you to develop some sense about the volume and the ebb and flow of people. But I just list here some attributes, the type of college. Is it private or is it career focused? Is it a large public and so forth? From my point of view, I think, and it was the conversation I had with my son and daughter, that my recommendation was they find a middle-sized institution to larger institution. They have a lot of interests, and you want to make sure that you can stay engaged in interesting things outside of the classroom and co-curricular that go with the classroom over the entire baccalaureate program. Smaller institutions may have a few things, but after freshman year, your interests expand or change. Are you able to move? So I think the middle-sized to larger institutions are really the way to go. Size of the student body, I think, gives you some sense. RET now is over 18,000. That's graduate and undergraduate. I think also where they are geographically. So RIT is all 50 states, 123 actually now, foreign countries. We're over 1,900 international, 1,300 deaf, hard of hearing, and 16% ethnic minority. So you want to have a sense of the blend. Your sons and daughters are going to be working in a global workforce. You want something that somewhat mimics what they're going to be working in at the other end of graduation. Work experience, some find that important during the degree program, some don't. Sports, clubs, organizations, and so forth. The last one there, campus safety, you want to have some sense, certainly I do, about the safety of the campus before your son or daughter goes there. You should know that federal law, and this is from the Clery Act, dictates that every institution in the United States that's receiving Title IV money from the federal government have available and make available their campus safety statistics. And those are available on request, but I would make sure that if there is a college that your son or daughter is pretty interested in, that you ask for that information. I put this up here for probably a reason that's a little different than what it might appear. Pay attention to the guides, and I think U.S. News and World Report is probably the one that everybody knows best. It wasn't that many years ago that it didn't exist. But I can also tell you that for U.S. News and World Report, even though RIT continues to get great reviews, it is their biggest moneymaker, well beyond any other thing they do for funding. So when you think about that, and you realize that this is a commercial enterprise that's trying to rank nonprofit organizations across the U.S. I would further say, and I've seen the content that they request, and I participated in the production of that information. They attempt to take very disparate institutions, large, complex places, and put them all on one scale and rank them, which is not, from my point of view, very realistic. It's pretty difficult to do. So I would caution you in their use, I guess is the way to say it, including Princeton Review, Fisk's Guide, and so forth. I would say this. I think as you're building your list in terms of the institutions on the list to visit, I think they're great for that. I would caution you in using these guides, however, in making final decisions about where. So that's my best advice to you as you move through this process. Continuing to talk about the education, I think it's important to consider the aspects that are curricular without question, but I think that there's a lot more that your son and daughter or daughter should have on their list in terms of the things they want. I know from our behavioral research with the national data we've read, students nationally say the #1 reason why they're going to college is to make lots of money. As the questionnaire I'm recalling says, it's the Cooperative Institutional Research Program out of UCLA. It's called the Higher Education Research Institute that runs this. They've been doing it since 1966, and it has changed. Students over the past really 10 years have pretty much unilaterally said it is about making lots of money. And we try to back students off of that a little bit and say that a degree program at the bachelor's level where you're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and money should result in something that is a reasonably good income and professional pursuit. And maybe that is at the top of the list, but maybe there are some other things that are at the top of the list as well. So we encourage them to expand their horizon in terms of what they want to receive out of their bachelor's degree. And I would encourage you to do the same with your sons and daughters as you're building your list. What are those other things that the campus they look at should be looking at also? So personal growth, intellectual virtues, honesty, the ability to think empirically. There are many things, I think, in terms of depth on each of these. Academic, obviously, ethical, philosophical, not only personally, but also as it relates to your discipline or field of interest. Interpersonal. We talked about the importance of interpersonal skills that students, regardless of their academic program, really need to have if they want to be competitive in the job market. Experience, leadership, and so forth. Help them build a bigger list. And certainly on that can be an incredible career and very good income. I want to talk a little bit about major, and I think this is important because I can guarantee your sons and daughters have a lot of pressure around this. Many of their friends, if not the majority of their friends, by the end of their junior year or somewhere in the early part of the senior year will say, I already know the major, I already know what I'm going to do in college and what I'm going to do as a career. And when their friends say that, the pressure on your sons and daughters increases because what's wrong with me? Why don't I know what I want to do? Something must be wrong. I got to pick one. And I think this is where parents can play a significant role in helping to ease that pressure, that there are many ways to start a college education at the bachelor's level. And most institutions offer the means to start off as an undecided student. And while that might not sound as positive to the family when your son or daughter says, yeah, I'm going as an undecided student, the reality is actually just the opposite. The student that's really not ready to make a decision can often benefit from a lesser decided program. Most institutions that do this, RIT does this across the board in all the colleges, and we actually now have, within the past few years, a university studies program that's for students that aren't sure which college even. And it actually enrolls somewhere between 70 to 90 new freshmen each year. So it's become a big deal at RIT. And it's helpful to the student because the student then receives counseling and advising related to all the possible areas of interest. They conduct various interest inventories to try to help the student pick out some possibilities, and then they help them plan out their first year of study so that the student has the opportunity to test out different areas. And they use free electives to help them do that. But the bigger point on this is it helps the student by the end of that first year or any time during that first year to pick a program that they have greater confidence is a good match. And second of all, graduate on time. So there's no loss of credit. It is a savvy way to consider. So help your sons and daughters recognize that they don't have to pick a program. It doesn't have to be mechanical engineering or photography if they're not absolutely sure. They might have 2 or 3 or 4, and that's okay too. I would encourage them to explore options, and I have here RIT Job Outlook, and if you follow this URL later or now, you will find the PDF of the Outlook. It's a blend of RIT programs, but it's really not just RIT. It's really a national phenomenon, and it identifies then where things are going in the future. And we've used Bureau of Labor Statistics information from the OOH, Occupational Outlook Handbook. But it's a nice comprehensive view that I think you will find helpful at the kitchen table with your sons and daughters going through all the possibilities and try to find some areas of possible interest. High school counselors love this brochure, and they put it up on their bulletin boards and on their desk. They use it as a counseling piece. So it's bigger than RIT, so I'd invite you to take a look at it and see if that you don't find that helpful. Already talked about asking to see faculty when you visit, gauging undecidedness with your sons and daughters. And last of all, I think if you are in an undecided, undeclared kind of conversation with a college, make sure that you talk with them about learning productivity and degree completion. So in other words, are they able to complete within the necessary time? The rest of this presentation is about the process, and a lot of this I think is pretty self-evident. I'll just scan through this quickly because it's fairly rote and process-based, but review the college information you've collected on each of those. We've talked about that already. Narrow the admission application choices from that 10 to 20 list you had. You visited 7 to 10. To 3 to 5. I think 5, somewhere in 3 to 5 is responsible. I would encourage the student to pick an institution that may be a reach, one that's pretty likely, and then maybe a backup that you're absolutely certain you can get into. And then if you add a couple more to that to make 5, that's okay too. But that's a reasonable number. Submit all applications prior to December, but I would caution you, make sure you create a master calendar of all the different deadlines for the institutions your son or daughter has chosen to apply to, because they will differ significantly sometimes. In general, most applications are going to need to be completed by December, and you want to look at not only the application deadlines, but there are also frequently credential deadlines, so the high school transcript, SATs, ACTs, recommendations, and so forth. So pay attention to those, make a master calendar, and I would last of all say, be ready to submit, because many of you will, the free application for federal student aid, the Fafsa, after December, and those are available from the school counselor's office. Moving on, there are many different application tracks. For private institutions, there's early action, early decision, regular decision. There's early action 1 and 2, early decision 1 and 2. It's fairly complex, but it does differ. You need to know what those are, and each of those have different deadline dates. I would also say if it's a public institution, you'll probably find that it is regular decision only. They don't have early decision, and it'll be rolling admission, meaning that as you apply and as you complete your credentials, we'll give you an admission decision. That's important if you think strategically about the 3 to 5 institutions you've applied to or will apply to. You can get some early decisions from public institutions if you complete credentials early enough. Admission decision outcomes can differ, obviously, from accept to waiting list, many different possibilities. I think I've already said read the application instructions. One quick comment here at the bottom bullet on differential admission. Many institutions, and RIT does this, admits students differentially by academic area. So we will look for one particular kind of student for engineering, a different kind of student for business, and yet a different kind of student for graphic design. So you should know if it is differential, and then you should know what the policy is. Firmer measures that are considered in the admission decision process, obviously high school GPA and rank. Some institutions won't go a lot further than that. A lot of institutions no longer require standardized tests. RIT does. Most institutions still do. Quality of the high school. And in some respects, institutions can tell the quality of the high school by the SAT or ACT standardized test performance for the school and how that compares with their GPA and rank in high school and the kind of courses they've taken in the high school. You see as the 4th bullet, rigor of the high school academic program. Is it Regents or, if it's not New York, basically strong college preparatory, honors, advanced placement, international baccalaureate. High school academic program matched to the intended major. How is that? Does that differ by program at the institution you're looking at? And many it will. High school performance trend. A student that didn't do very well in the beginning of high school is doing great now. For my purpose as a researcher, I can say is a great risk. The student that's an incredibly bright student that did really well in the beginning of high school and is not doing well right now is a high risk of not succeeding. So I think you got to pay attention to those, and some programs require a portfolio. The softer measures, recommendations, school counselor recommendations are usually the most important. Early decision, some institutions will give the student that applies early decision a slight break in the decision, so they'll take a slightly weaker student because of their interest in the institution. Legacy can weigh in on that. Varsity sports, special talents, work experience. Achievements often will make a difference if they've done community service, scouting, entrepreneurship, many others, and so forth. So I think you really need to understand each institution's firmer and softer measures and how they rank those. And here's just kind of a quick catch-up on what the institution really wants to know about you. Each college wants to know this in every case. Are you academically prepared? What is your level of interest in our college? Because if you're really interested, we're more interested in you. If you're less interested, we may not be as interested in you. What are your accomplishments? What have you done in the classroom, and what have you done outside the classroom? Are you a rounded student? And that's particularly important for private institutions. Are you committed? And the bottom line in terms of the research, it really truly is, are you motivated and are you determined in the work that you do and the things you do? And everything we see about you in your past, including your transcript, does it say those two things about you? And if they do, we're probably interested in you. Last of all, for competitive privates, it's going to be how all those things compare with all the others who have also applied for admission and are also qualified to perform well. It becomes a slightly different matter. So we tell students, and we would ask you to tell your students, be diligent and timely in your search for college. Engage your parents. Know that your accomplishments in college can help you achieve more than just a career and a good income. Work hard in your senior year and don't back off. This is the year definitely not to back off. For the competitive institution that says, well, the work up to this point in time looks pretty good, but we'd like to see evidence from the senior year because we're still having difficulty making the decision makes a big difference. Final admission decisions are often heavily weighted on senior year, and course rigor and performance in the senior year can smooth your adjustment to the first year in college, because some of those, if you're going from pre-calc to university calc at a university, may be more of a struggle than if you had calc or AP calc at high school and take university calc in your first year. And we run, I'm just going to say this is a quick advertisement for IT, but it's actually not. It's actually an invitation for all of you with your sons and daughters. And I'll finish up here. We have a program every year called College and Careers. Some of you may have even attended it. It's been going, I started this program in 1990 actually. But it's for students that are trying to get a sense of college, but also get a sense of the possible academic programs they might have interest in. This program has evolved into now over 70 academic programs. There are 2 sessions each summer. It's a Friday and Saturday. It's an overnight. And the student gets up on Saturday morning and goes to up to 4 academic programs out of those 70 that they pick. So let me just put this up. This is College and Careers. It's out on our website. Here's the link. And for alums, if you have a son or daughter that wants to attend, we'll give you a $25 discount on that. You got to call us and let us know. And here's the dates. And the registration website went live 2 weeks ago, so you should be able to go in and register if you like. This, let me say, though, is for juniors that are going to be seniors this fall. So if you have a sophomore, wait until next year. We will be running the program again, probably in perpetuity, because it has been an incredible success. And it's not if you're interested in RIT, it's if you're interested in trying to better understand possible career and academic pathways. Here's and I won't go through this, but the relevant college planning websites, a few sources that I think are pretty good. That you may want to take a look at with your sons and daughters. And with that, we're ready for Q&A.
Dan, thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise of the college admissions process. So all you alums out there tuning in, feel free to send your questions into the chat box, and we will get those to Dan to answer. Dan, going back to, you talked about the child's major, the student's major, and if they're undecided. Is there something we as parents can do before they start the college planning process to get them thinking about what their options might be? Are there resources? Are there tools?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. First of all, the high school may offer a number of options. I think that there are clubs and organizations. First Robotics, as an example, is often affiliated with high schools. There are many ways to have your son or daughter become engaged outside of school in areas that may help open their eyes to possible careers. There are professional services you could seek. I'm not sure how helpful those are. The school counseling office, however, is often able to administer survey instruments to look at possible avenues. If you take the ACT has a world of work map that is really well done. When you get the results of your ACT, it shows you different career areas where you align well with those who are in those fields and how they responded to the ACT, both in terms of their test results and the student questionnaire that's part of the ACT. There's one for both SAT and ACT, but the career planner is part of the ACT, and we find that really helpful. Let me make a side comment, too, about that, because I didn't mention it earlier. That's not related to career, but it is related to the different standardized tests. Some students, I'll say it this way, the correlation between the SAT and the ACT is roughly about 80% for students nationally. But they are very different instruments. One is looking at achievement, and the other is looking at aptitude. The aptitude is really more critical thinking skills. It's a little more amorphous in terms of how it works. The ACT is directly measuring your abilities and knowledge in college preparatory areas. So they are very different instruments, even though they correlate very highly. I would encourage you to have your sons and daughters take both, and you will find that often they will do a little better in one than the other. Also, scholarship committees at colleges will look at their standardized tests as they're making decisions around that. So you want them to be use the best scores possible. So.
Okay, thank you. You talked about briefly you mentioned the Fafsa form. So can you kind of give us an overview of what we can expect what is a financial package? I think most colleges and universities offer that, but what does that mean as a parent?
Well, the Fafsa is the federal form that you have to fill out and submit to the federal processing agency if you have interest in receiving financial assistance. And I would say further that many people think they're not qualified. If you're one of those, I would encourage you to fill it out anyway, at least in your first year, and find out. If you have more than one in college, that makes you, it doubles your chances that you may qualify. Let's go to the financial aid sheet here. And I'll show you this. I think this is probably one of the first things that's important to understand. If you're looking at 3 institutions, College A, College B, and College C, and College A costs $40,000 a year, College B costs $20,000, and College C costs $10,000, and the estimated family contribution that comes from the Fafsa, and this is the federal processing agency will determine based on all the questions and how you respond on the Fafsa will determine your EFC. If your EFC turns out to be family contribution of $10,000, which says the family should contribute, based on everything we know about them, $10,000 a year to the student's education, and then financial aid could cover the rest. In concept, the way this works is you would pay $10,000 regardless of the institution. So institution A would be 10, institution B would be 10, and institution C would be 10. And if each institution awarded 100% of your financial need, then you would pay the financial at the bottom would be 0 for institution C. You would get $10,000 from institution B and $30,000 from institution A. It's important to know that not all institutions, especially these days, are able to fulfill all of your financial aid because it's usually a mix of federal money, state money, and money from the institution. Let's go to another slide here, I think, that will help convey that. Oh, hold on here. So the Fafsa leads to a financial aid package for those that qualify, have an EFC that's below the institutional cost. So the financial aid package would start off with no-need scholarships often. So the student's really a very good academic student. They did well in high school. They took a good rigor of coursework. They did well on the SATs or the ACTs. It's probably worth asking the institution if they super score. Do they take the highest scores, the ACTs higher than the SAT, or they took the SAT twice and the math in one is higher than the other? Do they mix and match, which we call super scoring? That's to the benefit of your son or daughter. They would fill in then with need-based scholarships, grants, entitlements, need-based loans, and work study. And then no-need loans are often out there for parents. And then there's also, at many institutions, a tuition prepayment plan. Institutions have tuition, just like the economy every year going up, will increase on an annual basis. So they allow you to lock in often the current price of tuition for the next several years. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope that gives you some sense of financial aid and what a package is like.
Yes, Dan, I think that does help. Another question concerning what we think we're calling a common application.
Yes.
Could you touch on that and shed some light on what that is? Because I think some alums, perhaps who went to school some time ago, I'm not sure that existed then. So can you shed some light on what that is, how it works?
The Common App is a nonprofit organization that created many years ago, or about 8 years ago. A common application that can be used at a lot of different institutions. The institution has to be a member of the Common App. RIT is. There are several hundred actually now that are members. So you want to make sure that the institution is a member. But it is an opportunity to fill out one form electronically and to submit it to many places. So it can be a more productive way to move. Let me further say that last year the Common App organization revamped from ground up the entire application. So you may have read in the newspapers or heard on the radio, NPR or whatever, a significant number of problems with the Common App, and that is true. RIT experienced them, and so did every other institution in the U.S. A lot of those have been resolved. There's going to be further resolution this summer, so I wouldn't let that scare you off. It is a meaningful way to get a lot of work done with less effort. There's also another central application. It's called the Universal College App. So you want to look at the members first, though, before you fill those out. And then a lot of institutions, RIT being one of those, has their own application electronically, and you go directly to their website to find that.
Great. Thank you. Chris is asking that he and his family have heard that being an Eagle Scout is extremely helpful in the admissions and financial aid process. What is your current perspective on that, Dan?
I think it's especially true for private institutions and more competitive institutions that not only look at rigor and the array of coursework you've taken and how you've performed in the school, but they really look for, as we do, a more rounded student. So if you recall my comments about motivation and determination, those things that round out the student both in the classroom as well as out of the classroom, Eagle Scout, black belt in martial arts, all of those things tell you and tell us something about the student's wherewithal to achieve and succeed. So the answer to your question, does that make a difference? You should ask that of the institution you're looking at. If it's an RIT or one of the other competitive institutions that are private, I can tell you they're going to say the same thing, that absolutely achieving Eagle Scout is a big deal, and tells us a lot about the demeanor and nature of that student.
Thank you. Hopefully that answers the question, Chris. Question about students potentially interested in transferring from a two-year school, a community college. How does their admissions process into a private institution like RIT differ, if at all?
I think it's a really good question. A lot of students today and families are looking at alternative methods to finish in a bachelor's degree by starting at a community college and then transferring to a bachelor's degree program at a four-year. I think my caution on that would be a couple things. Number one, understand that the first 6 weeks of college attendance is probably the highest risk period for the student in saying that, I'm having difficulty adjusting, I'm not sure I'm fitting well. It's difficult for the student to adjust. And so you think about doing a two-year degree program and then a four-year degree. Think about doing that twice with your son or daughter, because the second time, even when they transfer, there will be a new adjustment period. Don't know anybody. People my age seem to already have their own friends. I don't know the place. I'm trying to get adjusted. So that's one thing to consider. And the second thing to consider is the throughput in terms of attendance. So many institutions today have articulation agreements with two-year colleges. So four-year colleges says if you go to that two-year college and do these things, then you can transfer immediately and everything will transfer and you can continue to on through the degree program here and graduate still in four, or if it's an RIT, five-year program, 5 years. Before you make any kind of two-year to four-year degree decision, make sure you've visited the two-year institution and you've told them that our son or daughter is interested in a four-year degree, if it's engineering, mechanical engineering, at institution X, but we want to start here. How will you help us ensure that there's a smooth transition for our son or daughter to move to the four-year program and to be able to effectively use all the credit hours they've achieved at the two-year in their four-year degree program, so there's no loss of, as you heard me say earlier, learning productivity and achieving graduation in a meaningful time frame. So that is critically important. I would encourage you also to bring a catalog from the four-year institution to the two-year institution and vice versa when you go to the four-year institution to confirm that everything you heard at the two-year is correct.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan. We've got a few minutes left, but there are no other questions coming in at this time. But if you do have something you wish to ask, please feel free to email all additional questions to ritalum@rit.edu, or you can tweet them to @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITWebinars, and we can get your questions to Dan directly. We'd like to thank Dan for being here today and presenting the Planning for College Primer for Parents, and we thank all of you out there for joining us today and for taking time out of your busy workday to be with us.
And thank you. It's a pleasure to have time to spend and to discuss this very important topic. So I wish you and your sons and daughters well in this process.